So I've wanted to make some videos for a little while talking about my past with reselling, how I got into it, why I got into it, and what I've learned and where I've gone with it and where I plan on going in the future with it. And honestly, like it's been a lot of years. I think now it's been about 9 years. Yeah, just about 9 years I've been reselling online different things, and I've done a lot and I've learned a lot. And I think that if I can make some videos talking about my journey, especially why I started doing it, I think people can get something out of it. So I'm probably gonna make a bunch of these videos. It's just gonna be me sitting here talking and rambling about my past and stories. If you want to listen to it, great. Hang out, and listen to it. If you don't, then this isn't video isn't for you. But yeah, I just think that over the 9 or so years I've done reselling and how I started with zero knowledge whatsoever, and all the things I've done right and all the things I've done wrong, and hopefully some people can learn some things with that. So again, if you want to hang out and kind of learn about my past, this is the first video to kind of talk about it. So I'm just going to sit and ramble and start from the beginning, basically. About 9 years ago, I started reselling online out of necessity, pretty much. I mentioned this before, and it's another video. I forget when, but I got into reselling about 9 years ago out of necessity. Basically, what the story was is that my family, me and my wife and I, we were not very smart with money. We were not responsible with money. We were overspenders, and we didn't pay attention to that kind of thing. I think credit card bills racking up, college debts, car loans, you name it, all the stuff that people normally do. I mean, it's just kind of the normal thing that happens over time. If you don't have a focus, you don't have a goal of what you're actually working towards, short term or long term, things just get out of hand. It can get crazy till you get to a point where it's not in your control anymore, and you realize something big has to happen. And that's basically what happened is, I got to the point where our finances were bad. Again, I mentioned this before a little bit, but they were bad. And you know how it is. Like everyone's been there before. Where like you got a credit card bill, right? And it's like that balance is creeping up a little bit, but you're okay. You can still make the payments. You can still do some damage to it. You can still attack that principal a little bit. But the next thing you know, it's a little more out of hand. Okay, we got to focus on this a little bit more, and you got to work on it. But you get to a point where it's completely out of hand and you really can't control it anymore. And that's where we were. And it was a mixture of just credit card debt from just stupid purchases, just living irresponsibly, car loans. I had student loans, personal loans, all that bullshit. You know what I mean? That's what it was. And so I remember I got to a point where I literally was making payments, and I was like, we're just officially at making minimum payments now. Like we're in trouble. Like we're not going to make any headway. We're moving this principle and moving forward. And we were, about 30 years old at the time, 30, 31 years old. And, we had a small child. We had a 6-year-old, 5, 6-year-old child that we were raising. And, we had our house and we were trying to get things going, but you can't get any traction when you're always paying, creditors and things like that just from stupid spending. And so I decided that it was time to make a life change. So what I started doing was I started educating myself on finances. That's where it started for me, was when I realized I had this very large amount of debts with our family to get rid of. So I started educating myself on finance, kind of just, I hate to say it, like how money works, because I don't think most people really know how money actually works until you educate yourself and you learn. There isn't financial education in like high school nowadays, which there should be. Why isn't there? I don't know why. But anyways, so I came across David Ramsey. So David Ramsey, for people that don't know, he's a financial guru, motivational speaker kind of a guy. You've probably seen him, glasses, bald guy, Southern guy, very smart. And I started, I think started Googling the normal stuff you do. How do you get out of debt? How do you make more money and all this? And I came across David Ramsey. And he has a program. He has a program, basically, I forget, it's like 7 steps or something like that to getting out of debt and being financially free and all that kind of stuff. And I forget the exact steps of all of it, but it was basically like get $1,000 emergency fund and then like pay off all your debts except for the house. There's a bunch of steps to it too. Then you pay off your house, so you increase your emergency fund. There's all these things you do, but the big thing is like you basically snowball your payments into debt. And you get rid of it. So I saw this plan and I really liked it. I said, okay, this is something that I can do and and we could work. So after I had a conversation with my wife and she agreed, she's like, yeah, we need to do something. So the cool thing is the most important thing was we were both on the same page. We both agreed that we need to make some changes to make this happen. So what we did was, this is even before I started reselling. I knew that we had to make a change of our behavior, so we did. So we sat down and we looked at everything in our house as far as expenditures, bills, everything. And we put it all on paper and we said, all right, here's our income and here's our expenses. And we realized that, we had more income than expenses. Like we were okay there, just we were spending foolishly. So what does that mean? Go on a budget. So that's exactly what we did. And actually, I think it was part of David Ramsey's like plan there, is after you have like your $1,000 set aside in cash, like in a checking account, just that's available for emergencies. Then you start attacking all your debt. But first, we needed a budget to find us extra money. So we did what's called the envelope system. And for anyone that's never heard of this, it's a fantastic system. I highly recommend it because you can very easily see what you're doing. And for example, what you do is, if let's say that we did monthly budgets, but we broke it down by week. Okay, so if let's say our grocery bill, no, that one we had to change. What was a fixed one? A fixed one, say electricity bill. Let's say electricity bill is $100 a month or whatever it is. So we broke that down into 4 weeks. And we said, okay, every week we're going to put $25 into this envelope that's labeled electricity bill. And at the end of the month, the money's sitting there waiting to pay your bill. So you have to predict it, plan if you have it. It was there. If we had a car payment, say the car payment was like, I think at the time it was my car, because I just got in a car accident, I needed a new car, but it was a low payment. It was like $250 a month. It was this very simple car. And so it was like, okay, put like $60 a week into an envelope at the end of the month. There's your money and you can pay it off. And we did that for everything from electric bills, phone bills, groceries, clothes. There's actually a miscellaneous one that we put $20 a week into because you never know if something weird was going to happen, or if we just want to do something fun. But we did that. We took our entire paychecks and we broke it down to the dollar, and every dollar had a place where it was going. We knew where everything was going, and it was very clear, and there was never a question. And on top of that, we took all of our bills, and I wanted to embarrass ourselves. So it was like, I think it was like 7 different bills that we had, like credit cards, student loans, all that kind of stuff. And I put it in big black writing on our fridge. Like where you put like your kid's good report card, that's where we put our debt, on our fridge, so it was staring us in the face every day. We knew it was there. And that's how we started. And we said, okay, we're going to do this. And we were a little bit lenient. Like we gave ourselves each like $20 a week of fun money. Like, hey, this is, if you want to waste something, this is what it's for. We literally even like, we're not big drinkers, but like, we like to have a few beers every once in a while. So what we do is we literally budget like $20 a week for like a case of beer. So if we wanted to have a couple of beers, we could do that. Like literally we budget everything. There was no going out to eat. There was nothing, there's zero fun whatsoever. We ate like budget, for a couple of years, like everything, like groceries was very like, hey, no, like we're not getting that. We're getting the cheap brands of everything. It was a lot of rice, a lot of tuna, a lot of simple things, but we had debt to pay off, and it was a lot of it. Tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars of debt. It was a lot. It was unbearable. So that's kind of how we started this off. And basically it was the snowball method is basically, you have like, say you have 7 debts, you pay off minimum payments to everything but the small one, and you put all your money towards the small one. So you eliminate that one really, really quickly, and you snowball everything into the next one, so on and so forth. And that's basically what you do with it. So it's a fantastic program. If anyone's looking to get out of debts or get their finances in order, I recommend David Ramsey. It's a great place to start if you're not familiar with finances and money and how it works. And it's just a great starting point because it's a very simple program I think anyone can follow. And if you're serious about it, you'll get it done. Anyways, moving forward a little bit with that. So we did that. I think it took us about 2 years to clear off our debt. It kind of sucked because right when we were like just finishing it up, my wife's car died and we had to get another car. And so we got another car, and like, bang, there's another, debt on top of it. But we were so much smarter with money and just how to handle it, and understanding that when you see those dollars leave your hands, or you swipe that card, like that like there's actually an impact there. And so that was our whole getting out of debt thing. But after like a couple of months of doing our normal envelope plan, getting rid of the debt and snowballing everything, basically, we saw great progress right away. Like right away, you notice the progress, and it was great. I said, you know what though, I'm the kind of person where it's like if I do something, I do it like 1,000%. Like I don't do something half-assed. I go all the way in. And when I saw the progress we're making with just like our normal jobs and our work, oh, I actually picked up a second job at the time too, a part-time job just for some extra money to help out. And because also it was we just had the time, so we said why not. Um, and so we did that, and then my thought was, how can I make this work faster? Because I knew that there was an end of this journey, and I want to get there as quick as I can, so I can be on the other side of it, where we're like, actually saving money and not just spending everything. So that's how I got into the whole reselling thing. I used to sell on eBay years ago, before all this for fun. Like I'd sell a few things on there, nothing really crazy, but I was like into it, and so I looked around my house, and one thing that David Ramsey said was, if you're trying to get out of debt, look around your house. If anything that's not nailed down that's valuable, sell it and put it towards your debt, because you don't need that shit anyways. And it was the best advice ever, because that's what I started doing. I went through my old video game collections. I went through my old record albums. I went through old clothes I had that were valuable, like jerseys and things like that. And um, that's exactly what I did. I went on eBay and I started selling things like crazy. And when you go through that kind of stuff and you realize how much money you had just sitting around, that doesn't really even mean anything to you. It's not really special. And we cleared out like thousands of dollars with just like that kind of stuff. So once I kind of gone through our house and like all the things we didn't want anymore that were valuable, we sold them to pay off our debt. I said, well, this works. How do I do more of this? And that's the moment where I got into reselling, because I said, you know what? I can go to tag sales. I can go to thrift stores, places like this, get products that I can find cheap, hopefully, and resell them. And all that money I can put right into our debt. So that's exactly what I started doing. And so I started my entire reselling business on that $20 a week of random fun money I had from our budgets. That's how I started. It was $20 a week. That's all I had. So luckily it was springtime. I think it was springtime we started doing this, because it was tag sale season. And I live up here in New England, where the weather's nice, lots of tag sales. And so it's exactly what I started doing was every weekend. It was funny because at my job, like I made my own schedule, and a lot of times like I scheduled myself off like Saturday morning, or I could work like Saturday night just so I could have Saturday mornings off to tag sale. And it was crazy. I would literally like leave my house like 7 in the morning, tag sale till like noon, then go to work from like 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. That was my Saturday. I'd go from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Wouldn't get home till about 10:30 at night. Saturday, I was exhausted. But then Sunday, I would take all the things I bought in my tag sales Saturday mornings, throw them on eBay, and they'd probably sell over the course of the week. I wasn't very knowledgeable early on. When you start off reselling, you have to look for, and you have to deal with things that you know. What I knew was video games. I knew electronics. Some of the very easy stuff to kind of, I wasn't a big reseller. So just the things that I knew from my own hobbies. I actually did look for magic cards and things, never found them because I knew them from back in the day. But big thing was like video games for me. Whatever I could sell that I could make a buck on, I would. I mean, my profit margins were sometimes very, very low, but it didn't matter because I was making money and I was getting rid of the debt. That's all that mattered. And every once in a while, you'd find that huge find where you make a bunch of money and you'd be really happy. Never forget, this is a crazy one. I was at a tag sale on my way to work, and it was like this kid was sitting there. He had a bunch of video game systems around. There's like Xbox and like a 64 and a couple other video game systems. And I look over, and there's a box with like 40 Nintendo 64 games. And video games are easy to sell. They're quick to identify. They're great. And so 30 or 40 games in there. I go, hey, how much are the games? And he goes, $5. And I went, a piece? And he goes, no, for the whole box. I was like, okay. So I said, done. And it was huge. It was like Mario Karts, and it was Zeldas, and it was, GoldenEye. All those Nintendo 64 games that were valuable, it was loaded with them. It was easily like $1,000 find. Easily. And this was pretty early in my reselling career, like within the first 6 months, if I were to guess. So I was pretty new to it. So that was my first ever like big find. Spent $5. Value was over $1,000 after fees and shipping. I don't know, what did I get? Maybe $600, $700, $800, whatever it was. I have no idea. But again, all that went right towards the debt. And so like you see huge chunks like that come out of something, and you see the progress that fuels you to keep going and do a lot more. And that's exactly what it did for me. And so that's how my first probably year of reselling was. I'm trying to think exactly how it was. Probably like maybe like 6 months. My time frames are terrible. I know it's bad, but like maybe 6 months into the debt thing, I got into the reselling. So probably I'd say like a year and a half. Probably like a year and a half into the reselling, we paid off our debt and we were good. And so we were at a point where we're like, oh shit, like we don't have this debt anymore. Now our money's in control and now we can actually save money. But not only that, but I built this reselling business I've been doing for a year and a half, and I was still really small time. I mean, I was just it was tag sales, it was thrift stores when I had time, which wasn't very much. I had a very busy, demanding job, and so I found time when I could. I found time, but any little bit helps. But at this point, I was a year and a half in. I had some knowledge. I thought I was, like this pro reseller, even though I was still just a rookie. But now all of a sudden, I had this extra money that was like, oh, like I don't have to. I actually don't have to pay this off the debt. Like this is ours. Then we can actually sit there and figure out like what we're actually doing and what our plan was. And that was such a huge turning point because it's a situation I think that a lot of people aren't familiar with when you're not worried about paying off your bill, but you're like, oh, like we have money left over. Well, what do we do with it? And we started doing some things. We started doing some things for our house. We started doing some upgrades, some things for us personally. We started treating ourselves a little bit more, like, hey, like we can actually, let's go out to dinner this week, like, because that is a treat. Like, let's face, especially in today's day and age, like going out to dinner, it's expensive. It's crazy. Like what a goddamn cheeseburger costs you nowadays. Like it's nuts. Anyways, but we got to that point and it was just such a sigh of relief in a different world for us. And that's, no, I didn't get into magic yet. It was a few years later. That's when I really decided to take this to the next level as far as reselling goes, because now all of a sudden I didn't have all these, these payments to make, wasn't required to make them. So all this extra money that I was getting from my reselling business was just profit I could just take. So I started doing the smart thing for it, which is I just kept putting it back into the business. So I think at this point, I would take some of it out for us to enjoy, to save, but a lot of it stayed in the business because I want to keep building this business because I was in love with reselling. When you find those cool things, it doesn't even have to be a valuable things, but when you find those cool things out in the wild that maybe you can either sell or keep or whatever, it's a very, very unique, very cool feeling. And so I absolutely fell in love with it. And so I started wanting to push the business more and more because I had some capital now. Before, again, I ran it on $20 a week. That's all I had. So, I mean, in a month, that's $80 you can put in your business. That's like nothing. It really is like nothing. So you have to bank on, reselling and getting good profits to put it in there. But now I could. So then I started taking the time to learn more and expanding. And I think that's about the time I was doing eBay and I was doing Mercari and like Facebook. I do local Facebook, things like that. But now is when I got into Amazon, and this was a pretty big game changer. It really was for me in my reselling career, and this is where I think, again, I think this is important for people to understand that if you want to try, if you want to go a different path, you have to really try different things. And this is, for me, was a big challenge because I was used to the simple eBay. You take some pictures, you make a listing, you send it off, whatever. Amazon FBA, fulfillment by Amazon, was a whole different ball game for reselling for me. There's a lot of very simple processes, but you have to learn them all. You have to learn the entire system, the entire ecosystem of Amazon, and how everything worked. But over a couple of months or so, I learned how to, properly source product for Amazon and how to properly ship it in, how to inventory it, how to price it. And it was a complete game changer when I realized the volume I could do on a website like Amazon, especially through Amazon FBA. For those that don't know, Amazon FBA, fulfillment by Amazon, is basically meaning that like if you have products, you ship them to the Amazon warehouses, they store them in their warehouses, and then you list it. Once it sells, Amazon will get the product, they'll pack it, they'll ship it, they'll handle all the customer service, they'll handle everything. They take a decent little fee. I think it was like a 15% fee or 18% fee, whatever it was. But when you consider the volume you do on Amazon versus like an eBay, it doesn't matter. The fees don't matter whatsoever. They really don't. And that's when I really started that's when my business really started to move forward. And the very first thing I got really big into with Amazon was books. And again, this is like 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago, I want to say, probably 8 years ago. And why books? Because let me back up. When you're doing something like this and you're finding it's successful, it's working well, and you love it, you're going to want to learn more. So I was every day, if I was listing things or packing things or cleaning products for listing on eBay, I had YouTube videos going. I had I'm listening to whoever I can, as far as like the Dave Ramseys, the Tim Robbins. I found a lot of other resellers on YouTube that have YouTube channels about their reselling journeys, and I just started following them and watching them like crazy, because these are people that have been doing this for years, and I'm new. I got to learn this. So I really spent a lot of time learning. It was just educating myself and learning about different products and different product lines. Sure, I knew about video games, and I'm trying to think what other big things I used to sell. Tools. I was always big on tools, because Snap-on tools, Matco tools are the best. You find those at tag sales, it's easy money. But my goal was like every week to learn a new category. All right, well, this week I'm going to learn about shoes. I don't know shit about shoes, but I'm going to learn about shoes. So when I see them at tag sales or thrift stores, I can buy these shoes and sell them. I learned about like suits. So I was selling suits for a while. That was great. Anything you think of like that you can find or try, like that's what you have to do. And you have to take the chance to screw it up. So anyways, when I got into Amazon, I had saw some YouTubers, some resellers doing book sales on Amazon. I realized books on Amazon were fantastic. I mean, it was originally just a bookstore. That's what Amazon was originally. And I could basically buy books for like 50 cents to $1 at a thrift store, sometimes selling for 10, 20, 50, $200 on Amazon. It was crazy. And so that opened up a whole new world for me. So I would go into a thrift store and, if the people that know the Amazon selling app or like the Bluetooth scanners, I would scan every book in the store. I walk out with a shopping cart full of books. It was like I was my own goddamn librarian. It was crazy. And that was huge, because I could go in and, and then you send like 50 books, 100 books at a time at Amazon, and all the inventory sits there. And when it sells, and otherwise just sits there, and it takes a little bit of time. But when every other day you're sending in 50 books, 50 books, 50 books. I mean, I had thousands of books on Amazon. This is just privately sourced, from tag sales, thrift stores. But I used to go to book sales. Book sales are crazy. You want to see something interesting? Go to a book sale. Look at all the scanners. That's a hell of an experience. It really is. But yeah, Amazon book sales is what got me into reselling really big, because I could do some serious volume. It didn't take a lot of capital. That's the best thing too. I could go to a thrift store, buy 50 books for $50, and honestly, that maybe like $800 to $1,000 worth of gross sales. Fees and all that, but like books, you make like 1,000% ROI on those. I mean, you did fantastic on those. And to the point where, and this is an important part, if you're going to get into a reselling world or anything really, is you need to make good contacts and use those contacts. So there was one thrift store that I used to go to all the time in Springfield, Massachusetts, which is no longer there anymore. It was a Goodwill, and I got to know the manager. Because he would always see me like do these books. So we got to talking, like he was a nice guy. And I was like, yeah, I sell these on Amazon, whatever. And he goes, dude, and he was right near like this Goodwill was right near a college. And he said, listen, man, he goes, I always have like a pallet of books in the back. He goes, since all these colleges, he's like, I can't even put these out fast enough. I can't sell them fast enough. I was like, well, show me. And so we go in the back room of the Goodwill, and he had like 4 pallets, like, at least, it might have been like 6, I forget, but it was this whole room just full of pallets of books. I was like, holy shit, this is insane. And he goes, yeah, these all came in. He goes, we haven't even sorted through these yet. So I just said, screw it. I go, how much do you want for a pallet? Pallet of unsorted books. And he goes, $60. I was like, done. There had to be 500 books in there. I'm paying like 10 cents a book. I'm like, this is crazy. That could have been $1,000. I don't even know. I was like, done. Sure. And so we tried it. I got the first one, and it was $60. And I hauled this pallet, I unloaded it and, put it in the car basically, and brought it back to my house, scanned through everything. And, maybe like 10% of them, 20% of them were sellable books, but that's still like 100, 200 books or whatever it was that was sellable for like $10 or more. But the best thing, it was by a college. So it was so many of these people were done with their school year. They just donated their old college books to this thrift store. And for people that ever sold books on Amazon, college books are expensive. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I bought a book at that thrift store specifically for $1 and sold it for 200. Um, dozens of times. And those are the kind of things you can find when you start really digging deep into a certain category and really learning it really well. So I became like I was a bookseller. I don't read. Like I don't read books at all. Like I don't have the attention to read. But so that's what's kind of funny is I became a bookseller of all things. So when I told people that knew I was in the reselling world, like, oh, what do you sell mostly? And I said books. They're like, what the fuck? Like it was the weirdest thing. But that's how it ended up. And so, I would literally like once a week I'd buy a pallet from this Goodwill. Like I didn't have to go out and source anymore. I'd call him up or he'd call me like, hey, I got a pallet, $60. And I'd take it away. He was happy because he could put money in the store's pocket and he got rid of all this crap that was in his way. So he loved it. And we had a great relationship for probably a year, where I just did books and it was nuts. How I always had like a pallet of books in my garage. My wife was like, what? It's actually kind of funny because my wife loves reading. We have our own library in the house just because she loves to read. And so she loved it. Like she might find a couple books she liked or whatever. But and then, I would take all the extra books, I'd sell them at my tag sales for like a quarter a piece and they would be gone. So it worked out I would make a profit on those ones. It only cost me like 10 cents a book. So it was like all profit. It was great. But yeah, the book selling was a huge, huge change for my business. Um, and that lasted a few years. I mean, I sold everything. I always went to thrift stores and tag sales, but the book thing was my main thing. I went to book sales all the time. I would travel an hour and a half just to go to a book sale, and clean up, and it was crazy what you could do with those. So yeah, that was a few years of my time. This video is probably about 30 minutes. I'll probably end this part here. Again, I'm just starting to scratch the surface, but I think this would be kind of fun, kind of a little series if people want to hear about my past and how I started. Because it's kind of a long journey, and I think it's cool because it eventually get to where I am now. But it was a lot of years of reselling, and it's funny the things that you get into. It's funny the things that you end up selling and that you never thought you'd get into. I'll tell you there's some things I sold. Um, yeah, I'll have some stories in time. So this will probably be a fun long series, but I hope you got something out of this first part. So we finished up with the books. I'll get to the next part in a little bit.